I personally want to end up just saying it was a record year for us. It seems like last year we had that same talk while we were up here. This year we actually raised $40,000.
All right.
So that's a great accomplishment, 14% over last year and 60% from the year before.
Excellent.
So we're certainly heading in the right trend. We're doing a lot of good positive things. It really shows that this Bonita Springs residents have stepped up and really ended up helping with this. I do want to say a couple of thank yous. Administration, of course, everything that you guys do to make this possible for us to get out there. The firefighters, and they do a wonderful job. I mean, they get out there and they hustle. I know it's hard. A lot of people don't like to stand out in the middle of the highway. I don't know, I always refer to that old game that whenever we were kids, a Frogger, because it kind of seems like that sometimes. The residents of Bonita, a couple of things with Publix. Publix has been great. I've gotten to know the different store managers, and they've been donating all of our Gatorades, water, as well as some snacks and stuff. So we're very, very grateful for them, as well as Papa John's ended up donating some pizza this year as well. So that was really wonderful of that. It always ends up making the firefighters a little bit at ease, a little better out there if they have a little bit of food in their bellies and stuff while they're going out, and they can come over to a little place and kind of take a little break periodically as well too. So outside of that, I'm going to turn it over to Erin. She's going to speak a few words. But again, I thank you all for everything that you do, as well as for the administration staff too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you and good evening. My name is Erin Randall. I'm the Executive Director for MDA Southwest Florida. And I would just like to say thank you to everyone that was involved in the boot drive this year. And we are proud to say that Local 3444 Bonita Springs was the #1 boot drive in Lee County this year with the most money raised. So very exciting, and it was wonderful. Everyone that, took the time out there, those 3 different Saturdays that we were out there filling the boot. And the great thing about the money raised, it stays right here local in our community. It helps families like Miles and Lisa that you're going to meet in just a moment. But we have a lot of great, wonderful things going on right now with the MDA. We have 43 different types of neuromuscular disease that fall under our umbrella term that we cover. In the last 6 months, we've just had 3 new drugs that were passed through the FDA for different treatments for Duchenne muscular dystrophy and spinal muscular atrophy. And we just learned on Friday we had a new drug that was approved through the FDA for ALS, which we are the world's leader in research for ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. So we're very excited to be able to continue to fund money for research to be able to make these treatments and cures a reality. And then also our local summer camp that we have each summer, the money that's raised helps send our local kids to summer camp each June, which we have coming up just next month, which Miles will be attending. And without the help of our firefighters filling the boot, and the generous community giving back, we wouldn't be able to send our local kids to summer camp. But I'm going to let Lisa say just a few words on how that impacts her life and Miles's life and give her appropriate thank you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time. I am Lisa Jones, and this is my son, Miles. Hello. Miles is 11, and Miles suffers from limb-girdle muscular dystrophy, but his favorite part of summer camp is actually going. When we pick him up, he starts counting. We're at how many days? 47 more days. But usually gets in my car and he goes, Mom, 364 more days, so I get to do this again. So he's super excited. It's the best time of the year for them because they get to be normal kids. No one asks them, why are you in a wheelchair? Why do you have that adaptive equipment of some sort? Why can't you do this or that? They just get to be a normal kid. And they get to do fun activities that some of us probably restrict them from doing. This year he learned how to do wheelies with his wheelchair. But it is a wonderful time for them, and it gives us some time to actually regroup too for the parents. We do have families who have children who have to get up every 2 hours and roll them so that they don't get pneumonia or some of the other diseases that they get from their muscular dystrophy. So it gives them time to rest and recoup. So I just wanted to tell the firefighters thank you, and we love them. We bake cookies for them and brownies for them and visit them. Miles got to ride on a fire truck this year, so he was super excited about that. So we just wanted to tell them thank you, and we do really, really, from the bottom of our heart, appreciate all that they do for us. Thank you.
Real quickly, we just want to take a picture of our nice big $40,000 check.
Sure.
Follow you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to mention, and I mentioned this last year, firefighter McGovern has been here for 2 years. He took this on all on his own and has shown initiative and made this his project to run the MDA program here for Local 3444, just to show the level of new recruits we have here and the initiative that he has shown personally to the district and to the cause. So thank you, Randy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And another thing too on the MDA note, this is a significant bragging right that we were #1 when we go to the Lee County Fire Chiefs Association, right? That's the big goal. So, yeah. So even though I don't do anything, it makes me look good.
Thanks again, folks. Next item, we'll get Commissioner's business. Start with Commissioner Murphy.
I have no business right now.
Commissioner Casilla.
I just want to thank the staff for, when we had the groundbreaking the other day at the new station 26, it was a great job by the staff setting everything up, and it went very well. Again, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Fitzgerald.
I have a request from the chief. In the last couple of meetings, we had some discussion on the appropriate time to make motions in lieu of this State Bill 50. You and I have had a little discussion. I'm in disagreement with what you believe this thing says, and you're in disagreement with what I think it says. So I'm hoping we could get a legal interpretation from our attorney. I don't read this bill to say we cannot make motions at a board meeting spontaneously. We have to propose the motion and we hear it at the next meeting. I don't agree with that.
I did want to comment on that, and I think I sent it out. There is nothing that says that the board members cannot make motions at a board meeting. It actually says that you have, it's a public comment is the issue, meaning that you have to allow sufficient time for the public to comment on an item. And bringing this up a few years back with Council Lewis, he said the safest way to do that, if it's not an emergency, if it's not something that has to be taken care of at this board meeting, to safely allow the public to have an adequate amount of time would be to put it on the agenda, the next agenda for the board. So the board can make motions if they would like to at the current board meeting, but it may not allow sufficient time for public comment. And I think we've had a member of the public before mention that why this isn't on the agenda and I want to comment on it. So we had to put it on the next agenda. So it does happen here.
And in the statute, if it's an emergency, we don't have to. We can actually make motions under an emergency situation where time is of the essence. So from a safety standpoint, to keep everything in the sunshine, it makes sense to, if we have something this month, to put it on next month's agenda and advertise it.
That's the difference. I don't agree with that. I agree that if we want to make a motion, before we vote, the public has a right to speak on it.
Right.
And that is what I believe this bill is saying. It's not saying to postpone the motion for the next meeting.
It's not advertised as an agenda item, though. It's what Terry Lewis had told us to be on the safe side. When I had my conversation with him about it, as chairman asking him what to do, he said that the safest way was to advertise it, put it out 1 week in advance, so that the public comment, maybe somebody that wanted to comment on it, wouldn't know that we were voting on that, so they wouldn't be here to comment.
I disagree with Terry Lewis. I
Okay,
do
sure.
not think that's the intention of this bill. The intention of the bill is for no action, or nothing on the agenda to be finalized if the public is here without giving them a right to speak. I may be wrong, but I don't agree that,
Okay, duly noted.
yeah. Okay, so if you could bring my disagreement to Mr. Lewis and ask him to check it and write to me or give us an opinion, and whatever he says will be it. I didn't discuss it with him, so, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner McCourt?
Yes, thank you. I just have one thought. I've already talked to the chief about this, but I thought I might share it with the rest of you so you would all see what your thoughts are. I'm getting a little concerned about side setbacks in our city. And I don't know when this happened, but somehow it got through that now you're only required to have a 5-foot setback on the side of your house. So the distance between houses becomes like 4 foot closer now than it used to be. They've run into some problems with air conditioners because now I have to put an air conditioner on the front of the house because there's not room between the two houses for it and so forth. I don't know when this came about, and I don't know how it came about, but it seems to me from a fire point of view, it's something we ought to look at and we ought to be a little bit concerned about. The situation we had down on the beach just recently with that fire, you know, it's very difficult to protect the house next to it. Now, I agree that it was an older home and we don't have many of those left, but I think, I just think that it's something that we should have had some input on if we didn't. Now, maybe we did, I don't recall, but just wondered what your thoughts are.
Good
Yeah,
point.
I totally agree. I think we should research when it was changed, and if we were informed or we had any input. If not, we could get together and say we would go against that particular statute or whatever the
I would
regulation
think
is.
the fire marshal would have been,
And change it back to where it should be.
I would think the fire marshal would have been notified about any setback changes and requirements and had some input into that, I would think, one would assume.
Yeah. What we'll do is, we'll research the code and see what the fire code says and whose jurisdiction it is, depending on, working with the city code enforcement and the fire code, and I'll report back to the board.
5 feet's not very much.
No.
Pardon me?
I said 5 feet isn't very much. There's
No,
question about
I
that.
mean, and of course, it's, when you're building big houses and you're trying to get out as far as you can to get the maximum interior space, I understand why they're doing it, but it just, the space between the houses, they might as well put them together and make a duplex out of it, I think.
Something to look into.
Yes, sir. Thank
And
you.
I have nothing for commissioner's business other than it was nice to finally do the groundbreaking on the station out by Village Walk. Next item is old business. Does anybody have any old business that we've talked about I want to bring up again? How about new business? Anybody got anything they want to throw out? Well, let's move to the chief's reports. Chief Daigle.
Yes, gentlemen, this is, the only thing that I have is just a reminder to the board that the next board meeting will be on June 5th, if you'd mark your calendars, if you don't already have it marked, as opposed to the 12th, because that's FASD. So just, if you would, please make a note of that. And additionally, I did want to thank the ladies in the administration who put together the award banquet. They did a fantastic job, and anyone who went there, we had a good time, and there were some of our top employees received the awards that they deserve from their peers. So thank you. And that is all I have.
On that note, I would like to, from a personal standpoint, I was unable, health-wise, to attend the awards banquet, but I would like again to publicly thank the video and the tribute from the troops and from my fellow commissioners. That was very touching. Thank you. Assistant Chief DeWitt.
I have nothing tonight, sir.
Okay. Deputy Chief Scott.
I do have a comment I'd like to make. As you know, Marine, it's now 27, is on the lift down there at the beach station. And we had a call last week. It's just a report on this one particular call that we were rather proud of, the way it turned out. But they responded to a boat approximately 4 or 5 miles offshore, and they were in the water and on scene before any of the other MERT resources hit the water. And then we're able to give a code 11 and cancel all the resources before they went. So that's pretty positive, I thought. I was real proud of them. They did a great job and got out there, and it's just nice to hear that.
Well, we've known for a long time that
It's
having
worth
a
it.
boat on a lift will
Yeah.
serve the public well.
They were there in
It's finally,
front
the day has finally come.
Even the Sheriff's Department, FWC, they were the first ones on scene. So it's nice. So hopefully we'll make a difference. Thank you.
Good job. And Deputy Chief Madden's report is in the pack. If anybody has any comment on that, as usual, good job. Well, final item on the agenda, public comment. I have no cards, so I'm just, okay.
Ron Pure, Bonita Springs. Something was brought up tonight, just a little earlier, by Ed Fitzgerald, Commissioner Fitzgerald, about, and I had no idea it was going to happen, it was interesting, about making motions at meetings on something that the public brings forward, for example. And you'd have to wait for the next week for a motion to be made so that the public can appear and weigh in on it, I guess is the simplest way of putting what I understood. Which leads me to think that, for example, at the last meeting, I brought forward a concept of your increasing the impact fees. And I don't know that any part of that was discussed at that meeting, but I'm a member of the public, and I'm wondering why that wouldn't be on for a discussion at tonight's meeting, brought forward. So there's something askew somehow between what Ed believes and what the chief believes. There's another issue, I think, that has to be addressed as far as how things get on the agenda and become a part of the discussion of the meeting that follows. I'd like to continue with the idea of you were readdressing the impact fees. Don't know if you guys have discussed it at all, not amongst yourselves, but have thought about it at all in between last meeting and tonight's. And further, the matter of the newest revelation that came out of the fire district and the union, but specifically the union not having designated their PAC as being a organization that has ties with another organization, and I think that paper was passed out to you. So those are two matters that you haven't addressed, and again, at the previous meeting, there was no motion made, needless to say, but there was no discussion either after the public comment relative to those matters. So I'm wondering why that can't be done tonight or at a subsequent meeting, which I think was part of the reason the matter of motions and so on was brought up. Thank you. I'd love to have an explanation.
Alex Grant, 11851 East Terry Street. On public comment, it would be, I've been on the city council in Bonita Springs 4 years, and before that on the local planning agency, and now on the Historical Preservation Board. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at, the notice of the meeting, the agenda, is always posted outside the City Hall for anybody to see that. I think, and I don't know why the fire department has never done this, have a bulletin board outside like the city does, and have the agenda posted a few days prior to the meeting. That way, people know what's going on. It's not published in the paper, so nobody knows what the agenda is from the public, from one meeting to the next. So
The agenda is posted on our website 1 week before
Yeah,
every
but
meeting.
not everybody looks at the website. Not everybody has a computer. This is, if the city does post a notice, a printed notice out outside the building, I don't see why why the fire district can't do the same thing. I mean, how much is it going to cost? $100, $200 to put a little secure posting sign out there before you enter into the building? People can read that at their leisure, right? Do the same thing the city does. So that's a suggestion to the board. Do the same thing like the city does, and that way you have more chance for public input at a meeting. So that's one thing. And number two, there was a comment made last time about what I had discussed in two previous meetings about a certain situation that occurred in this fire district by a couple of employees on a violation of state law. And there was a comment made that it was like a parking fee. Well, I would suggest that if anybody thinks it was a parking fee, they should contact an attorney who specializes in criminal law and determine from that individual what the adjudications are on such a situation, especially when it was, I believe, four count, not one count, but a 4-count violation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
May I comment on that? I'm the person who made the statement, it's like a parking ticket, and it is. If there is a crime or misdemeanor or some action outside of this agency, and it's handled by another authority, and it was handled by the Election Bureau, and they fined him $4,000, that's the end of it. I don't know how anybody could think it gets in here that we have authority.
Exactly.
I just...
Well, we've said that countless times,
I know,
but
but he-
the same issue keeps coming back up over and over again. We don't have the authority to do it,
Right,
so.
it's just not our place. Mr. Pure brought up a couple of items. How do you get on the agenda? I believe he can formally ask to be put on the agenda. Whatever period of time we have for preparation of agenda, he can bring a subject up, and then we have to discuss it at the meeting. The difficulty of some of Mr. Pure's, or not just particularly Mr. Pure, anyone who comes up before the public and says something, we're not prepared, and we haven't any reason to respond to him. So I suggest Mr. Pure, or I suggest anybody who wants to speak before this bureau, this board, apply to be on the agenda. And I think we almost have to allow them to be on the agenda. And if we don't have to, we certainly should. Okay.
Thank you.
That's...
I would ask that we have a presentation on impact fees to get this behind us, because we deal with it during our budget process. We understand what monies we have coming and how we have it, and why wouldn't we want more
Well,
impact fees?
my
But that's not our
understanding,
decision.
my understanding is that administration has been working on it, and we have no say over impact fees. It is strictly at the county commission level. We have no authority to raise it, lower it, double it. It's at the county commission level, and I think the chief can address that. Again, it's why it hasn't been put on the agenda, it's why it hasn't been brought up, because we are dead in the water. I totally agree with Mr. Pure. I don't think anybody up here disagrees with him. We can do nothing about it, and I think the chief may want to address that.
Yes, I did not mention this in my report. I was looking for a further confirmation, but it is my preliminary understanding that there will be an impact fee study done by the county this year. That's a preliminary, but I
And
want to
at
make
that point,
sure
if that
that's
happens, then
that's
we will
not in
have somebody at
stone
the
at this
table.
point, but before I mention to the board that that is in fact what's going to take place, then I will confirm that with the board, with the county.
There is no prohibition, if Mr. Murphy says, and I think the board believes the impact fees are inadequate to do the job required, that why not we state that publicly, write to whatever authority determines the impact fee levels, and request that they be increased.
I think first we need to do a study to figure out how much more do we think we need in impact fees. I think that would be prudent before we had a discussion in front of the public. I think administration needs to look at what we get now, and then from there, okay, we always want more money. Everybody wants more money, okay, but what is realistic, what's doable, and what's justifiable? And I think from administrative side, you bring it to the board, and then when we get a seat at the table, when this is up for discussion, I think that's the time to address it.
I would rather be a little more proactive than waiting for someone else to decide. I think that we, as a board representing the people, should have a consensus, and if we believe and it's not the...
We have a consensus. We think we should get more impact fees.
If we believe that the impact fees are insufficient, and we should, because they have been reduced. The last 10 years, they're going down. Expenses of everything in the world is going up. So I think that we should proactively write to the authority and say, this Board of Fire Commissioners representing the people believe the impact fees in Bonita Springs should be raised. Let them raise it whatever amount they want. We could even say raise it to the 2006 level.
It becomes more of an issue now with the new homestead exemption law that's going into effect. It's going to hit special districts worse than anybody, because we're pretty much a single source taxing district. So this new bill that passed last week in Tallahassee to give another $25,000 is going to affect a lot of people, and it's a matter of, so the impact fees would be a place to maybe make up some of that loss. But I think that, that's something that we need to not go off half-loaded and just make sure that we have all our ducks in a row and then present an intelligent argument.
Yeah. I want to just, Mr. Poor, if you have something to say, we'll entertain you at the desk if you like.
I don't take comments from the floor. Well, we're going to adjourn this meeting.
I would just like to throw my voice behind Commissioner Fitzgerald. I think the impact fees are significantly low, and I think it would behoove us to be heard. I understand it's not our responsibility to raise them, but we are the group.
I think we're all in
directly
agreement with
affected.
that. I don't think there's anybody up here that argues at that point. So now we just have to figure out a plan, and if they're going to do an impact fee study this year, then I would like to be personally involved in that, and I know administration will, and I'll be happy to carry the torch for that. But at this point, we've got to make sure when we don't want to start taking pot shots and firing over everybody's head. And there they go again. We want to have something like we usually do. When we put something together, we have a study. We come in with something that's well put together and has some educational background to it, and say this is why we're going, this is why we need this, and this is why we want to do it. And I think you get a lot further with that. And I think if we're all in agreement with that, then Got your marching orders.
May I make a motion that
No.
we address the authority having jurisdiction at the amount of impact fees and write a letter, given the opinion of this board, that the impact fees are inadequate for Bonita Springs operations?
Do I get a second to that motion?
I would second
No,
it,
you
except
can't-
I'd say you gotta wait till the next meeting to
Yeah, you
talk
can't,
about
you
it.
can't
Yeah.
do
No,
this.
you just-
We've had this
That's the
conversation.
point, what I'm
I think
trying
what, I think what you're asking for
We
is
need a
you
point
want
of
it on the
order.
agenda.
Point of order here. This is public comment. We've had our public comment. We've had our chance to talk about commissioners' business, and everything else goes to the next meeting, and get together with the chief if you want to put something on the agenda.
I am not happy what you just said. I don't think that Robert's Rules of Order are so rigid that we can't discuss issues openly.
Have a motion to adjourn.
If I could comment on that, I don't believe a motion we made during public comment.
Right, exactly.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.